Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Maddie here, and welcome back to our mini-series talking about every single deck in Pokemon Pocket. Last video was all of the fire decks that saw play this season. Today's video is going to be all about all of the grass decks that saw play throughout the season. Grass decks are very interesting, and I think there's a lot of really good grass Pokemon that really didn't see that much play this format. This should be a pretty interesting video. One thing to note that I did mention in other videos is that some formats are like special format or special restriction tournaments. So like, you know, not every deck here was played in like a standard format tournament. So keep that in mind. We don't really know which is which. But anyway, let's get right into it, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's dive into every grass deck in the entire game right now. Okay. Let's go. Let's give me some wild stuff. Right off the bat, we've got OG Exeggutor EX played with a Alolan Raichu. I actually don't hate this deck list. Exeggutor is a Pokemon. We should bring Exeggutor back. One of my favorite Pokemon of all time. It flips a bunch of coins, but you know what? We do have Leaf Cape now, so I guess there is some merit to maybe playing something like Exeggutor EX. I don't really know. Alolan Raichu does take colorless energies. I don't know why we're playing this Pikachu, but anyway, Exeggutor and Raichu pair them together. You know, maybe it works out. I don't know. Exeggutor is something that I think maybe should be reconsidered. We are living an attack with Giant Cape from the Stoke Charizard, which is pretty cool. So anyway, there you go. Next up, we've got the new Serena. I think this is the new Serena. Yeah, 50 damage, but your opponent shovels a random card from their hand into their deck, which is pretty cool. And then we're pairing it just with one Snorlax EX, which again does kind of make sense. Mallow does work with the new Serena. I've wanted to use this combo a lot, but unfortunately 50 damage just doesn't end up being enough in the format right now, and there's too much healing, too many Lily and Stage 2 Pokemon for this particular guy to do really anything, and Charizard just kind of gate kept Serena out of the format. But anyway, there you go. There's Serena. There's probably going to be a few of these decks in this video that we'll take a look at, but this one is definitely pretty interesting. Next up is crazy. What did we got here? We've gotten Superior plus Venusaur EX plus Exeggutor EX plus Celebi EX. So a little bit of everything, a little bit of basically every grass Pokemon that you know, saw play of a previous format. I guess thrown all together in one. I don't really have much to say about it. There you go. Pretty crazy. What is this video? Okay, again, these are decks that people played in tournaments, guys. I went through and I picked up literally every single version of these decks, grass decks throughout the season. So anyway, here is Serena with Exeggutor, but we're playing one of each Serena. So again, I love this Serena Mallow stuff. Again, I think that this is actually a really strong combination, and these are good cards. I think they just got absolutely gate kept out of the format by Charizard. Unfortunately, Leaf Cape on Serena puts you at 170. Charizard with weakness is 1-hit KOing you no matter what. And the whole Mallow strategy with Serena just entirely gets gate kept by Charizard. So unfortunately, that's why I think that Serena never really saw plays, because Charizard caught on. But anyway, there you go, Serena and Exeggutor. Here is an interesting one. This is Exeggutor with Greninja. I don't know if we're playing Water Energies. It would make sense not to play Water Energies because Exeggutor just has one Grass Energy in its attack cost, so you're going to want to make sure that you have Grass Energies in your zone. But we are playing Greninja and we are playing Cyrus, so I guess, you know, technically speaking, we can do some extra chip damage, maybe control which Pokemon we want to attack. I don't know. It's an interesting one. It doesn't really make that much sense to me. We even have the small Exeggutor as well, which is pretty cool. Next up is going to be the 3-kick combo Serena with Sylveon, and then just one Celebi thrown in. So again, the Mallow Serena combination here would be a decent combo. Like, this is not a bad Pokemon whatsoever. Leaf Cape does actually put you out of range of getting KO'd by so many different Pokemon in the game, but then unfortunately one of those is not Charizard, so you kind of have to deal with that. If Charizard didn't exist, I really think Serena would have been quite good. I like the Sylveon stuff thrown in here. Again, we're probably just playing pure grass energies. Maybe we're playing dual energies in here. I don't really know. Sylveon will allow us to draw through our cards to find rare candy, which again does work for Serena. So there you go. Shout out to the one Celebi as well in the deck list. We're gonna move through this one, this video a bit quicker before, because I don't know if you guys are gonna like these videos or whatnot. I think it's funny to take a look at these decks. And I'm not disrespecting anybody, although this deck list here might deserve a little bit of disrespect here. I don't know what's going on. 1-1-1 Superior line, 1 Bulbasaur, 1 Venusaur, and 1 Celebi, and then they just threw in a Buzzwole in here as well. I don't know what this Buzzwole's doing. We're not playing Lusamine, we're not playing Celesteela. I mean, Buzzwole really isn't a strong Pokemon unless it's around its entire Ultra Beast package, so I don't really know. I don't know what to think about here. The one Buzzwole is definitely interesting. This is definitely somebody just throwing the kitchen sink. They're basically just kind of, you know, putting through every single grass Pokemon that was in their collection here into a deck list. Maybe it worked out for them, maybe not. Next up, we do have the new Serena with Decidueye. So again, we're going to see a lot of the Serena stuff in here. It's one of people's favorite Pokemon for, I guess several different reasons. But I actually do think Serena and Mallow had a lot of potential. I've said this a bunch of times. Decidueye is interesting as well. Decidueye was another Pokemon that I think could have been really good. It just unfortunately didn't do enough. And a lot of the top, rare candy stage 2 Pokemon in the game just did a lot of damage. And it's hard to really contend with things like Charizard, Solgaleo, and whatnot. Pretty fun deck. There you go. This one is super cool. So we actually have Golisopod with Masquerain and Leafeon. I don't know really of any inherent synergies here. Golisopod, first impressions, does 60 damage. If this Pokemon moved from your bench to your active spot this turn, it does 60 more damage, so 120 for 3 energies. I guess Leafeon is there to set up Golisopod, and we are playing 1 copy of Leaf, but Masquerain does have free retreat, so maybe that's the whole idea here. I don't know how we're getting Golisopod like out of the active spot to re-attack or whatever, but Wimpod actually does have free pivot on your first turns, which is pretty cool. So Masquerain, 40 damage, 1 energy. I guess it's there to just have that free retreat, so I kind of like this combo. Probably not very good, but interesting nonetheless. Next up, again, we've got just a massive pile of grass Pokemon. That's kind of what we see oftentimes. This was a thing in the old formats. People used to just play Superior with like a bunch of grass Pokemon, and it was kind of the same idea of like, some of the fire decks that are in the format right now. You just kind of play these grass Pokemon, and then you hope that you kind of get Superior up and running. Superior doesn't synergize with Exeggutor at all, but it does synergize with Celebi. So the idea here is that Exeggutor sits in the active spot. We attach a bunch of those extra energies to Celebi, and then by the time we bring in Celebi, maybe we're flipping twice as many coins because we have Superior in play. I think that's the idea here. This was a deck way back in the day, probably not something very, in the meta at the moment here. This is a really fun one. So this is Fan Rotom, Indelmise, and the Kickdown Serena. So a control archetype. Fan Rotom is really cool. You flip a coin, if heads, then your opponent shuffles their active Pokemon into their deck. So the whole idea here, Serena shuffling cards from their hand back into their deck, Fan Rotom shuffling, of course, Pokemon back into their deck. It's really cool, but unfortunately, again, we're not doing enough damage, and even with Leaf Cape, Serena's just getting KO'd by Charizard. And you know what? That's really what this video is all about, is all these decks that maybe could have been cool, but Charizard exists, and unfortunately, they couldn't really do anything. Next up is Exeggutor, but we have a Scyther and a Farfetch. Now, I don't really know the idea here of playing one of each. Farfetch does 10 more damage, but has 10 less HP. I don't know if there's literally ever a world. I guess, okay, I'm wrong. I guess we can heal Scyther with Erika's, and we can bring it to 100 HP with Leaf Cape. So maybe that's the idea. Farfetch'd is also weak to electric. So Farfetch'd is going to be better against basically every scenario other than against Oricorio. And I guess that's the idea. We're just playing straight Exeggutor, hoping it works for us, and then we have Scyther and Farfetch to maybe just get around to Oricorio. Kind of cool. Bring back Exeggutor. Make Exeggutor great again. Here is basically the same deck that we just took a look at. This is going to be Kickdown Serena with Fan Rotom, a very cool combination that I would have loved to try myself, if not getting farmed by a Charizard. Next up is Meowscarada with Giratina. I don't know if I've ever seen this before, but I actually kind of like it, if we're being honest with you. So, Giratina EX is cool. I guess, in the meantime, while we're crying for help and while we're setting up Meowscarada, we can Broken Space Bellow with Giratina. I don't know if it really works out unless Giratina is out on our board first turn, going first, because that's the only way where it's going to take 3 turns to get 2 energies on Meowscarada. By then, of course, Giratina will have 3 psychic energies, but at the same time, on that last turn, we're probably just going to want to attack with Meowscarada. So I don't know if the synergy is really there, but I kind of like the idea here with this Meowscarada Giratina deck list. I'm going to take a drink. I'm pre-recording all of these videos, by the way, so if you guys haven't noticed, I'm just recording them all like in one go. A lot of talking, a lot of stuff going on here. Yet another massive just pile of cards here. So we've gotten just a full kind of spread Beedrill line here. 2 different Weedle, one of the Beedrill EX and one of the non-Beedrill EX, which are kind of cool. And then 1 Kakuna, and then we've got 1 Bulbasaur, 1 Ivysaur, 1 Venusaur EX, and then Shaman. Again, if you put enough Pokemon in your deck list, you're hopefully just going to draw into some of them. Venusaur is kind of an underrated Pokemon. It can go actually it can go head to head with Charizard. It's just probably not going to happen really. A lot of healing here, right? We have Erika's, we've got Leaf Cape, we've got Lily, we got Pokemon Center Lady. So we've got 4 healing cards plus 1 Leaf Cape, and then also Shaman. I guess this Beedrill is really just here to get around Oricorio. So yeah, there you go. Next up is Meowscarada with Giratina again, but now we have Sylveon. So we're kind of skipping the middle evolution. Again, this deck list has really, Meowscarada is not an EX Pokemon, so it can't just counter Oricorio. I understand the idea here. Meowscarada was a Pokemon that was very prominent in the metagame at one point. Unfortunately, though, I think it was really only good with it when it was played with Magnezone, because all of the Magnezone decks completely counter Meowscarada, and I think that Silvally also completely took Meowscarada out of the metagame. That's just my opinion, quite frankly. One Giant Cape as well, so why not? There we go. And here is a Decidueye deck. What's funny about this is that we're not playing Decidueye EX, so I would assume that this deck was played in like a non-EX tournament. That's my only assumption. That's the only, I guess, way in which I think we would ever be playing this deck list. But anyway, 2 Pokemon Flute, so we're gonna go ahead and put, you know, more basic Pokemon on our opponent's bench. I don't know about this. I really don't. The Sniping Arrow Decidueye is cool. 70 damage to any one of your opponent's Pokemon. We can KO an Oricorio on their bench, which is definitely interesting. In a non-EX archetype or tournament or format, I can see this deck being okay, or like kind of cool. So anyway, there you go. Okay, Meowscarada and Executor. This is something that probably has seen play in a previous format before. I don't really remember. Again, there's really not that many good grass type Pokemon in the game, so this is just going to be a combination of a bunch of them all kind of mashed together to some way or another. I don't even know. There was really only one like grass deck that was meta this format, which was Buzzwole, I think. Probably the one at the end of the video. Anyway, Meowscarada and Executor, sure. Here we go. We've actually got Arceus. So this is the grass Arceus package. You know, this did see play for quite some time. I think that people played this Arceus package also with Crobat just to deal the extra damage. But Carnivine is always, like, it's always been a good card. You know what I mean? Like, I like this deck list. And we got the 2 Ilima as well to scoop up Arceus. We've got the Sky Support Shaman and then the free pivot Rotom here. This is cool. I like this stuff as well. You know, this is definitely akin to some stuff that was somewhat meta in a couple formats ago. Maybe it was Triumphant Light, or maybe it was like the format after. I don't know. Like, aggro Arceus definitely was real at some point. Kind of a deck list and an archetype that I completely forgot about, but somebody remembered and somebody played it this season, which is kind of a throwback. Next up, we do have Decidueye EX and Pheromosa. This deck list, though, is playing just one Eevee, one Sylveon. You know, we're probably going to see a couple of variants of the Decidueye Pheromosa stuff. Again, not a bad deck list, but unfortunately just doesn't really make any sense to play this over Buzzwole. And again, it's a deck that's just going to probably get absolutely rolled over by a lot of the other Stage 2 decks in the game. So, yeah. Anyway, there you go. Decidueye Pheromosa. One of my favorite Pokemon in all of Pocket history was Decidueye. I just never really got the support. Yo, this is a throwback. So when Decidueye was first released, I believe when A3 came out and I saw Decidueye, I thought it would be like the most crazy card in the entire game. And I initially wanted to pair it with Greninja, right? Because it made sense. We could damage a Pokemon on the bench with Greninja and then pierce the pain with Decidueye and just attack it. So it kind of made sense. But unfortunately, I think Genetic Apex or not, Stoke Charizard kind of, you know, kept its relevancy over time. And I think that it was just a big reason why Decidueye didn't see that much play. Anyway, yeah, this is a Greninja Decidueye, but we do have one Sylveon thrown in, which is pretty cool to see. Next up is kind of a throwback. Definitely a meta deck from a bunch of formats ago. This is Superior with Leafeon with Celebi, but now we do have Rare Candy, right? So we can maybe go into Superior a little bit quicker. Again, the whole concept here is that Leafeon generates those energies and gets Celebi all set up and running, and then, you know, Superior plus Celebi, we can KO some Pokemon. It just didn't end up being as good as we maybe wanted it to be, unfortunately. Leafeon did end up seeing play, but it saw play in a fire deck, which we talked about in the last video. Anyway, kick down Serena with Buzzwole. So, I mean, sure, you know, I guess you don't have to play Celesteela or Kartana or Pheromosa. Why not just play Buzzwole with Lusamine with Mallow and Serena? I guess that does make sense. Just dodge Charizards. Maybe you'll be okay. Next up, we've got Leafeon with Decidueye. Okay, so that's, yeah, I mean, that's what this is, right? So Decidueye, Leafeon. All right. The one Sylveon here was throwing me off, but again, it kind of makes sense, I suppose. We do have the small Leafeon to get around Oricorio. You know, again, you know, this does make sense. This is a real deck list. It's a real strategy. Do I think it's a good deck? You know, probably not. Again, there's just the fire decks are too strong. There's a lot of cool combinations of grass Pokemon, but unfortunately, they're just not seeing any success. This is actually Lurantis Decidueye. This was a deck that I played actually quite heavily. Was it A3? I think it was in A3. You know, Decidueye was okay. It saw some play in a variety of different ways. Mostly it saw just play as like attack inclusion in Meowscarada back in the day, which I don't know if that's even in this video. But my favorite way to play Decidueye back then was actually with Lurantis. This has been replaced by Pheromosa, which is probably just the better option than Lurantis, but this in general was one of my favorite decks of all time. It was just really fun. Here is another Serena deck list, and it's kind of just straight Serena, but we are playing Tapu Bulu. Again, maybe this was a deck that was played in a non-EX tournament or a non-EX restricted format. Pretty fun. I mean, Tapu Bulu, I don't know if I've ever seen this card, or ever, like in game, I don't know if I've ever seen Tapu Bulu. 100 damage, flip a coin. If heads, this attack also does 20 damage to itself. So, I mean, okay, 120 HP, that's 150 with Leaf Cape, and 100 damage for 3 energies. I mean, it's not terrible. I don't know why you would need to do 100 damage. Like really, these non-EX Pokemon just need to do like 60 or 70, right, to KO Oricorio. So 100 is a bit overkill for sure. But you know what? Why not? Why not just pair it in with Serena? Here's Meowscarada and Serena, another sort of fringe meta archetype from a couple formats ago. I think it just made more sense to play Meowscarada without Serena or to play it with Decidueye. The thing with Serena, and this is actually the kickdown Serena, so it's not even the one where you flip coins. The thing with this combination is like when you wanted Meowscarada, you would get to Serena. And when you wanted Serena, you would get Meowscarada. So it was just a little bit awkward in that sense. And again, a lot of Pokemon can just kind of KO us pretty easily. But you know what? Shout out to the Serena. So many decks were playing this card, which is crazy because it never really entered the metagame. And unfortunately, I just think it had a lot of potential. When I saw this card, I thought it would be crazy, right? With Leaf Cape, with Mallow, with Rare Candy. It just didn't end up being anything too special. Here is Sweets Relay, but this is a grass type Sweets Relay deck. I guess this is this counts as a grass deck because we're playing Appleton. Yeah, so yeah, I guess we're playing grass energies in this deck list. Why would we play Appleton and not any of the other ones? I guess I don't really know. I guess we're just hitting for weakness on Pokemon that are weak to grass. I guess that's something. You know, Sweets Relay is a deck list, so I guess this is the grass version of Sweets Relay. There you go. Pretty cool. Next up, we do have the OG Serena 3-kit combo, just with one Celebi, one Tapu Bulu. Again, you know, it's just like a bunch of cards that unfortunately just don't have enough HP or aren't consistent enough or do enough damage. We're flipping a lot of coins with this deck. In fact, every single Pokemon in this deck does flip a coin to some degree, which is, you know, interesting, I will say. Yeah, there you go. There you go, guys. This is Meowscarada and Beedrill, and we are actually playing one Lilligant. You know, this Lilligant card isn't terrible. So Leaf Supply, 2 energies, 50 damage, but then you generate or you attach an extra grass energy to one of your bench grass Pokemon. You know, it's not terrible. Like, this did see play, I guess, to some degree. It was like a card that wasn't terrible. I don't know why we need the energy acceleration up against, like, when we're playing Meowscarada and Beedrill, honestly. I don't know. Meowscarada and Beedrill was a deck list, actually, for quite some time, and I always loved Beedrill, but unfortunately, Stoke Charizard just also loves Beedrill, so there we go. Here is just straight Beedrill, but we're playing Sylveon. So this is something, again, that kind of makes sense, right? Like, Sylveon sees play in decks like this, right? In these sort of standalone, fairly strong EX Pokemon with Rare Candy, and we just kind of move through the deck quickly. Like, this deck list makes a lot of sense. This is like a real deck. Unfortunately, though, you know, like, you know, we're just gonna go back to the old Charizard thing, right? Charizard exists, and it is just, it's really the only reason why every grass deck didn't really see any play. It was just because Charizard was so ridiculous. And Incineroar also Flareon as well, so you got to give them some credit. But anyway, shout out to Beedrill. I know we all remember getting hit with Crushing Spear Beedrill. It was definitely good times when that was happening. Not. Okay, Superior, Jungle Totem with Leafeon and Celebi. I feel like we've seen this deck before in this video. Have we talked about this yet? I don't know. There it is. Next up, Superior Celebi, just without anything else, just straight Celebi and Superior. You know, this might end up actually being the best way to play this deck. You know, the thing is, Celebi is that most people think of it as like a Pokemon that you should set up with a bunch of energies and then, you know, do a big attack and flip a bunch of coins and one-hit KO stuff. But I actually think Celebi has like the most merit as like an aggressive Pokemon, like a tempo attacker. You know, like, it's 2 energies, so it's like, you know, you flip a coin for every energy attached to Celebi. As long as we have a grass energy on this thing, like, we can potentially do 50 damage on our second turn, and that is relevant. Like, that's, you know, like, that's not terrible. And the next turn, if we're alive, we can potentially do 150. So it actually works as more of an aggressive tempo attacker. I think that actually has a lot more potential than people think it does. Gen 2, I mean, I guess the Johto set is coming out, so maybe Celebi gets some extra support or some revitalization. We'll have to see. Could be pretty cool. Here is Decidueye Meowscarada. Okay, so we were talking about this. This was a real deck, for sure. I think it was A3, was it? Like, this was like, I think before Buzzwole, this was like the grass deck of the meta. This and Beedrill. Fun times, honestly. It seems like forever ago, but yeah, Meowscarada was good. Again, it got pushed out of the format, I believe, by Silvally. It never loved Magnezone, but yeah, we're actually not even playing Decidueye EX, so I guess this isn't the same deck, but it's the same idea. Probably also played in a non-EX tournament or archetype. And then here's the one that I was actually talking about, which is Meowscarada, Sylveon, and Decidueye. So, you know, Decidueye EX, Meowscarada, again, classic combination, was meta at some point. Maybe it does make sense, kind of like the Garchomp or Rampardos deck where you just throw in a 1/1 Sylveon line. Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything else to say about it. There you go. Okay, so here's Decidueye and Pheromosa. So this is, again, like the newer version of Decidueye that people ended up playing after Meowscarada fell out of the format. People wanted to play Decidueye, especially when Pheromosa came out. It made sense. It was kind of an upgraded, better version, more consistent version of the Lurantis Decidueye deck. And since Meowscarada had been pushed out by Silvally, you would think that this would make a lot of sense, but it just wasn't Buzzwole. And that's really what it comes down to. The best grass deck by far in the game right now is Buzzwole. It was the best deck of the previous format. And here is Buzzwole. This is going to be Buzzwole with Kartana, or Balanced Buzzwole as we called it before. Shout out to Repel, one of my favorite cards in the entire game. I think it deserves to see more play. Quite frankly, that's just my opinion. But anyway, yeah, this is Buzzwole, and Buzzwole is, you know, a good card. It's one of the better decks in the entire game. And then Buzzwole Pheromosa, which actually just won the recent Ursa Days tournament, so definitely the best grass deck in the game. And shout out to Buzzwole, because in a format right now, in the Eevee Grove season, this is the only real meta grass type deck, which is kind of surprising when you take a look at how many strong grass type Pokemon there are. It is just quite interesting to see all of the different grass decks that are really in the game right now that people are choosing to play. And this is really the only one. Buzzwole's just the only one that has survived. So maybe we get some more grass support, or I guess just maybe a better format for grass Pokemon next format. I don't know. We'll have to see next season. Shout out to the grass decks. Shout out to everybody who's been watching these videos. Again, I'm going to be releasing these like every day over the next few days, but I'm pre-recording them because I am away again this weekend. A4 is coming out next week, so if you're watching this video, stay tuned. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and hopefully you are enjoying this mini-series. And then, of course, you know, the videos coming in the future are going to be all of the other types. We're here trying to showcase every single deck in Pokemon Pocket. Maybe it's silly. Maybe this video series is really silly. I don't know if anyone even cares. But I'm pre-recording them, and I'm going to upload them regardless. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you guys later. And yeah, bye.